All right. Thank you, everybody that's attending to the fourth in a series of customer experience educational webinars that we are doing around the customer experience. This one is on the contact center level reporting. And we'll be working specifically with Tony Poor, who is the CX Program Manager for channels at 8x8. He'll be leading us through today's presentation. What we will be covering today is what exactly is Conversation IQ and how it can be beneficial to your overall environment. We'll get to see a live presentation of this terrific feature set that's been brought forward by the good folks at 8x8. At the conclusion of that, we will try to answer the very important question of why. Why would you use this? Discuss a terrific promotion that's going on right now from your team here at Vertical, and specific and only available via Vertical, and a little bit about us at the back end of all this. So without further ado, let me turn this over to Tony Poor. Tony, it's all yours.
Thank you, sir. Hey, everyone. My name is Tony Poor. I run our contact center programs here at 8x8. And today I want to talk about a feature that was born in the contact center, but is now available for any user on an 8x8 platform. So specifically, if you've got users that are using our UCaaS platform, right? If you're on an X2 license, an X3 license, an X4 license, somebody who's a knowledge worker, not necessarily a contact center worker, but wants to take advantage of some of the more advanced functions. Those of you that know us know that we're a hosted provider of voice, video, messaging, and contact center. And we provide all that on a single platform. And one of the huge benefits there is not only do you get all the consolidated, reporting and licensing structures and integration framework and things like that, but you also have the ability to take things like speech analytics, call recording and quality management, something that was historically known only as a contact center function. And we can now make that available for users that are not within the contact center. So I think the ideal use case, and we'll get into this a little bit more, is your inside sales teams, IT help desks, people that aren't really full-blown contact centers, but might need more than just the basic call recording. So let's dive right in. Let's talk about this application a little bit. Conversation IQ is our quality management and speech analytics application. And like I mentioned, it used to be available only for our CCaaS customers, but now it's available for any 8x8 work application users. It brings a ton of value to the table. It provides users across the entire business with a single application for speech analytics, as well as quality management insights. Really easy to use, as you're going to see from today's demonstration. We can deploy it very simply, and we can provide you sample evaluation templates and speech topics. So you'd be enabled on day one. Now, if you compare that to some other speech analytics platforms, they usually take quite a while to fine tune. But with 8x8 partnered with Vertical, you can have this application up and running in about a day. It's designed to improve your insights. So there's AI-driven sentiment analysis and speech analytics that allows allows your supervisors to more easily get a holistic view of the conversation as they evaluate the performance of your users. It provides a lot of consistency. So you can customize coaching across the entire organization, and your users are going to know exactly how and where they're supposed to look for performance tips and suggestions. And then Conversation IQ finally can automate your searches. You can create reports and you can create drill downs, so supervisors won't need to spend a whole lot of time to find calls that are interesting or useful to them. There's a handful of key capabilities that we're certainly going to see during the demonstration. Number one, we've got stereo recording. So you're going to be able to see who is saying what. It's not just one single file. You'll hear your outside customers as well as your inside users. It's got annotation capabilities. So you can go into a recorded call and you can make your own notes on that call. So I could say, at the 2-minute mark, I'll show you exactly where this is where Kurt got upset. Here's where Jeff did a great job making the sale. It's got sentiment analysis. So I can tell you not only what people were specifically saying during the call, but I can tell you, were they in a good mood? Were they kind of crabby? It's got the ability to do evaluations and scoring. So you can provide a quantifiable score and track the performance of your team members. Obviously, because it's related to call recording, it's got the ability to do call monitoring. So you can real-time evaluate and ensure the quality of your conversations. And then finally, what we call topic mapping, which is how supervisors can locate calls with specific keywords or topics. Now, Before we dive in, I do want to take a quick minute to kind of differentiate between quality management and speech analytics, because conversation IQ can provide both of those things. So let's make sure we're on the same page when you're comparing or contrasting different solutions that might be out there. Quality management is the idea that we're going to be able to review, evaluate, and measure our team members, right? We record the call, we listen to the call, we can assign a grade to that call, and then I can report on all those grades. In other words, I can say that Kurt is one of my best support engineers, not just because we're buddies, but because I graded 10 of his calls last month and his average score is 85 out of 100. And now I have some very specific detail on what he's doing really well and where he might need to improve. We're going to show you what that looks like during the demo. And then speech analytics, on the other hand, is the ability for AI to look for specific keywords or trends that are happening during that conversation. So it knows who's speaking and it knows if they're in a good mood or not. These two functions can exist kind of independently of each other, but when you mix QM and speech analytics together, you've got a really, really powerful tool. But it's not just for your basic process improvements. There's a handful of very specific use cases where Conversation IQ is a fantastic solution. It can be used for sales optimization. You can use Conversation IQ to take the best sales pitch possible. Ask yourself what commentary your salespeople are using that leads to the most revenue. Are there words you should avoid, right? Figure out what your salespeople should be saying and share that with everybody. From a risk management standpoint, maybe you're wary of saying specific keywords. You don't want to make guarantees. You don't want to make promises about your product. So let's locate those specific transgressions. Let's find those spots where maybe people are saying things they're not supposed to be saying. And let's reduce that from our vocabulary, right? Let's use the tool to help find the problem children. You can also uncover some really unique conversational insights. You can learn more about your customers and your callers by listening to what their wants and needs are. Now, are they mentioning your competitors, for example? Are they complaining about the website redesign you just did? Are they referencing a commercial or maybe a marketing campaign that you're running, right? It also has the ability to confirm regulatory statements. If the call is being recorded, it might be required to let your contact know that the call is being recorded. And obviously, you're going to want to find out if your agent is saying that or not. If you're in an industry where you have to read a very specific set of contractual language to every customer as part of a sale, think, mortgage refinancing or other financial services, we can validate if your team is saying the right things in the right order. And then further from a compliance standpoint, do you have business specific messaging that you're supposed to be saying? Let's enforce and let's track the use of what your team member is using, whether it's brand names, marketing terms, service requests. Let's make sure that everybody's on the same page. This is going to give you the ability to see all of that. So I don't think of it as just a quality tool. It is really a business strategy tool that lets you get insights on every single interaction that your customers are having with your team members, whether they're in the contact center or not. Remember, this can be used for anybody that is outside of the contact center. It could be your accounting team, your HR team, IT, sales, whole lot of really unique use cases for this. You don't have to give it to everybody. You could give it to just a subset of users and really get some powerful insights. So let's go ahead and take a quick look at what this guy actually looks like. All right. So what you're looking at on screen here is our Content Analytics Center. The main center of the screen, this is a heat map where all the different topics and trends that have popped up during those calls that have been recorded. This is kind of, it's expanding or contracting depending on how common certain phrases or keywords are. So this is where we have the ability to organize all those different keywords and phrases that we're searching for. We're going to come back to this in just a second, but I also want to point out, it's also giving you suggestions for maybe things you're not searching for. But let's dive in and actually take a look at what the call recording window actually looks like. Call recording is pretty straightforward, right? You've all called into an organization and heard the recorded message that says, this call may be recorded for quality assurance purposes. Well, if you're not recording your calls today, I would absolutely advocate for you to do so, because it can save you a lot of money. It can save you a lot of time and training. And this is where we go in and we find those recorded calls. I can search for recorded calls based on a ton of different factors. Show me all the calls that Kurt made. Show me all the calls that Jeff made. Or show me all the calls that came into our customer service team or our IT help desk from the beginning of January until today that lasted longer than 5 minutes that resulted in a certain outcome. We've got the ability to find very, very specific needles in a haystack, or we could find a bunch of needles in a big haystack. Either way, we want to find that interaction. And when we hit play, we want to listen to it and find out what happened. Now, finding that call and listening to that call are pretty straightforward. What we can bring to the table, though, is some extra functionality. So I'm just going to go ahead and grab, let's grab this one right here. When I pick a particular call, this little window opens up on the side, and this window contains all of that extra call detail, including all of the sentiment and speech analytics data. One of the first things you might notice is the little green smiley face on this interaction. This is our sentiment analysis at work. The little green smiley face means that this call was generally positive. If you want to use your imagination, or if you don't, we can actually show you this in a second. If it's a bad call, there's a little red frowny face. So we can show you a holistic score for the call, as well as individual spots in the call that maybe went well or went south. As I scroll down and look, I've also got the ability, in addition to all this call detail, I've also got the entire transcription of the call. And if you look at a glance, it kind of looks and feels a lot like a text message interaction, right? I've got my internal person on one side and my external party on the other side. So I can read through it like a full-on transaction. It's fully transcribed. We can support this in multiple languages if you like. What you might notice, though, at the top is this series of hashtags. Hashtags like caller has a financial concern, food poisoning, which sounds kind of scary, agent empathy, and so on. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click on the agent empathy hashtag just for a second. When I click on that, it jumps to the spot in the transcription where the agent exhibited empathetic behavior. The agent said, "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that." Right? Now, there's a bunch of different ways that my agent could exhibit empathy. They could say, "I'm sorry to hear that. I'm terribly sorry for you. Oh, that's a bummer," so on and so forth. In fact, if we put our heads together, we could probably come up with 20 or so different keywords that my agent could say or that my user could say that would exhibit empathy. Now, I can search for those specific keywords. I could say, show me any call from Kurt where he specifically said the words, "I'm sorry to hear that." Or what would make my life easier is I could say, show me all the calls from Kurt where the empathy hashtag was added on. And that gives me the ability to find all those calls that maybe have different keywords, but that are all part of the same topic or the same subject. And from there, I can use that data to further refine my search. Let's jump back over to the content analytics window really quick, and I'll show you what that looks like. So let's talk about agent empathy as a hashtag or empathy as a hashtag for a second here. I'm going to go over to this window, and here's where I'm managing all of my different topics in the heat map. So I know, just because I've done this a bunch of times, we've got customer experience is one of our most prominent topics. There's actually a bunch of subtopics related to that. Topics like confrontation, solutions, empathy, the aforementioned empathy. So let's actually look at this empathy right here. There's 22 phrases right now that if one of my internal people says it, that empathy hashtag is going to get associated with the call. So if my internal person says, "Please accept our condolences. I apologize for the hardship. Are you okay? I apologize," so on and so forth, right? These are all different phrases that anytime any one of them pops up, that hashtag gets associated with the call. Now, I mentioned earlier that we can have you up and running in about a day. And that's because when we deploy this platform, when Vertical sets you up with this application, we're going to give you our most common search terms and topics and phrases. They're going to be pretty generic, right? Right out of the box, it's going to be things like confrontational language, empathetic language, upset customer, so on and so forth. Well, in addition to that, you might want to create your own, or maybe you want to tweak this list. Maybe you've come up with 4 or 5 other phrases that are also empathetic language. Well, let's go ahead and you can actually edit or add your own. Or let's say you're a medical device manufacturer. I can promise you all of your device names are not preloaded into our system. But what we can do is very easily give you the ability to go in and add all those different device names and maybe create the hashtag medical devices. And then anytime one of your customers or your internal team says one of those keywords, the hashtag devices appears on a call. It's just like using a hashtag in social media. It's a way for you to understand what the topic or the category is that you're searching for. So ultimately what this means is I could go in and find all the calls where we've been using aggressive language, and I can train that out of my team members. Or I could find all the calls where maybe a caller mentions a competitor, or they mention our website, or they mention a specific campaign or marketing program that we're running. There's a level of insight that you can get from this that you're just simply not going to get from any other any other reporting application, right? We're mining every single interaction that your customers have with you, whether it's in the contact center or not. So we've got the ability to organize, sort, search, find that data, and then take the next appropriate step. And this is where we get into the quality management aspect, right? If I'm going to take this information and use it to make Kurt a better salesperson or a better engineer or a better IT help desk support technician, whatever his role is, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use this. I'm going to find transactions where maybe he didn't do the best job. Or let's take the flip side. Maybe I know that Kurt is my best IT support agent, right? Let's go in, let's find all of his transactions, and let's find out what he's saying that makes our customers happier. And let's use that to build the best practice. So how do I go about doing that? Well, I've already shown the ability to find the individual transactions, but let's look at what it means to actually go and move into the quality management arena. So if I go back to that same call as before from Roger, right? I've got my interaction down here in the bottom. I've actually got the call timeline itself. You can see the audio waveform. I can see the spots in the call where things are going well, right? I can see multiple happy pieces of feedback. I could jump. Let's see if there's any negative emotion in here. I could jump to the spot in the call where that exists. Well, in this case, there's nothing. But I could also find, other keywords or phrases that happen to appear in that call. As I'm listening to it, I'm going to not play it just because I know exactly what happens here. But let's just jump to the middle of the call, right? Let's say right here in the middle of the transaction, let's say Kurt does a really great job of de-escalating an upset customer. Right? Somebody was trying to get a refund. They're talking to your accounts receivable team. Maybe they got a little bit heated, but Kurt was able to talk them down. If I want to share that information with Kurt, I have the ability to go in here and I can annotate right here on the call. And I could even tag Kurt. I could say, hey, Kurt, great job de-escalating this. And I can share it not only with Kurt, but I could share it with Kurt's manager. I could share it with Kurt's other team members. If this is a scenario that you think is going to be helpful for everyone to understand, I can share it with as many people on the team as I need to, and they're going to get immediate access to this call. The best part is I can even highlight a specific spot in the call that they can have access to. So let's say it's a 20-minute conversation, but the part that's relevant is this 60-second snippet right in the middle. Cool. I can just point them directly to that middle section, that little spot, and have them listen right from there. Use that as your training example to learn what to do or what not to do, depending on how the transaction goes. I think that is kind of informal coaching, right? I'm reaching out, I'm saying, hey, good job, could have done better here. Let's share this with the rest of the team. But there's also a component called formal coaching or evaluations that maybe happen on a more specific cadence, right? Maybe I've committed to listening to 5 of Kurt's calls every week, and I'm going to give Kurt a score on a scale of, could be 1 to 10, 1 to 100. You can make it up as you go. So when I do that, I'm going to open up this evaluation form right here. Got the ability to create evaluations, and I'm going to go ahead and score this call. So as I'm listening to the call, I have the ability to go through and I can basically provide points for everything that Kurt did well, or maybe remove points for the things that he didn't do well. You can create these scorecards from scratch. We've got a bunch of different templates that are in there, but we can give you the ability to ask whatever questions you want. You can weight the questions with whatever point values you want. So a lot of flexibility in that regard. But as an example, I could go through and as I listen to it, hey, did he greet the customer promptly and effectively? Yes, he did. How empathetic were they? I'm going to give him a 85 out of 100. We can score from 1 to 10, 1 to 100, whatever values you want. I could add comments on each single one. So I could say he did a great job of X, right? As I go through, it doesn't just have to be regular generic questions. I could say, was there a resolution? You can have whatever different product names or whatever different options you want. It could be a multiple choice. It could be a pick list. And again, here's another one where instead of 1 to 100, it's 1 to 10. How much wood could a woodchuck chuck? Well, give them a 9 out of 10 on that one. Literally whatever questions you want, whatever makes sense for your organization. If there are specific calls or questions for your IT team, they can have their own unique scorecard, because obviously we're going to treat IT help desk questions differently than HR questions, right? So let's create the different evaluations and fill those evaluations out. And now at the end of the day or the end of the week, I can say, yep, Kurt's average score is 90 out of 100, and I specifically know which questions he's consistently answering correctly. And if he's consistently getting certain things wrong, now I've got a very targeted area of where I can go back and coach Kurt to make him better. On the flip side, if everybody on Kurt's team is missing the same questions, maybe it's not just one-on-one coaching I do. Maybe I go back to the entire team and say, hey, we're all missing the mark here. Let's all get better at this one specific thing. So we know that the ongoing training of your people is incredibly important to their personal development. And there's a direct correlation between that and how long they stay with your organization, right? Attrition is generally lower if people are better at their jobs. So we can use these tools to not only give you better business insights, but to also improve attrition in parts of your organization that might have a problem with it. When it comes to finding that information, we've got reports upon reports upon reports, all sorts of different information. I can show you individual scores by agent, individual scores by team. I can show you the scores by the person who graded the call. So if let's flip it around, let's say Kurt's one of my supervisors, right? If Kurt is consistently a little bit meaner or more harsh than Jeff, well, now I know I need to go back to Kurt and say, hey, you're scoring a little bit more harshly. Let's calibrate everyone so we've got a consistent view across the entire organization. Common question I get is, okay, well, what does this data actually look like? Here's a report or an example of a report with all the different teams and all the different average scores by team. And I can look at this and I can see I've got threshold set. If anybody's below a certain threshold, it automatically stands out. So at a glance, I can see who my problem children are. In this particular case, the central office, my group that is not assigned to a particular team, and then my West office, those guys are all below 80%. Maybe I need to do some coaching. And if I need to figure out where, I've got the tools to go figure out exactly what spots they're doing well in and what spots they're not doing well in. So it's a fantastic business application tool. But I think at the end of the day, the real value of Conversation IQ is not just the ability to make your people better. It's to get business insights that you wouldn't otherwise get. I know that voice of the customer is a trend and a very common question I get. How can I find out more about what my customers are saying about my organization? And unless your team members are coming to you and escalating all of that informal feedback, it's really, really difficult to get a handle on how often certain topics are coming up. But with this tool, I can not only search for those particular trends and topics, but it's going to tell me the trends and topics that maybe I'm not searching for that are also popping up in calls. And then I can very easily go back over, list out my calls, and I can tell you with certainty how many calls came in last week where they mentioned my competitor. How many calls came in the last month where they talked about trying to buy a product on the website but had difficulty, right? We can give you insight on those types of questions, whatever they might be, for your entire organization. I'm going to pause here for a second. I'm going to turn this back over to Kurt to talk about a very cool promo that we've got, as well as some other specific use cases where Conversation IQ might fit in. So as I do that, get my screen back going in slideshow mode. Kurt, I'm going to turn it back over to you, sir, and let you talk a little bit more about why people want to use Conversation IQ and talk about the promo that we've got going with Vertical right now.
Thank you so much, Tony. Very good so far. So again, we've seen what Conversation IQ is, and we've seen a lot of the power of what it can provide. Why choose to do this? Well, several things. Number one, this gives you an opportunity now to optimize every customer experience to be able to drive sales and customer retention for all of your teams. So this is not specific just to your CX teams, to those that are within a contact center. This now can be used for the entirety of your organization. By being able to do that, that gets to another why, which is the ability to provide value and money savings, because now we're able to take a feature set, very powerful feature set, with the ability to have that quality management and those speech analytics, which have only been available in the past, to your contact center teams, and be able to use that for the entirety of your organization. So now you can drive this into your sales teams, you name it, across the board, to be able to interact properly. And as such, with the next why, you're really making sure that the entirety of your company, that the messaging that you want driven to anybody that's in contact with your company is meeting the standards that you expect for them. So there are some of the whys of what you're able to do this. So again, um, involve all of your teams, bring some value, and have the messaging for everybody meeting the same standards. Now, on the next slide, let's talk a little bit about the promotion that's going on. And this is a promotion that is specific to Vertical and what we're able to provide in partnership with 8x8. At the very top, there's a link that you can go to. So if you wish to, go to the info.vertical.com/8x8-conversation-IQ. Will get you access to this. So what we really have right now is a 90-day try and buy of this terrific feature set. So with this, there's no upfront costs. Simple to set up. You'll be working with the professional staff here at Vertical to be able to get this going for you. There is a cost of $42 a seat for doing this, which is, you know, hundreds of dollars less than just being able to do this in a contact center realm as far as the costs involved with that. And again, it'll include expert consultation. So along with this, it's not a matter of just setting it up. You'll also have Vertical teams available to be able to review the material with you, provide some training, and make sure that you get the most bang for your buck out of all of this. And again, the key piece of this that's unique to being able to work with Vertical, you get 90 days to try this out. And if at the end of 90 days you decide that it really isn't a fit for you, not a problem. You can walk away and not have any issues at this point in time. Okay. So again, talk to us about that. And we again are Vertical Communications. Why work with us and who we are? Again, we are a comprehensive communications provider. We've been at this for decades. We've done this with tens of thousands of customers, and we really work to tailor your business needs. So, why Vertical? Again, successful business history as business partners and trusted advisors for tens of thousands of companies. And as it states here with the second bullet point, again, this is all about us trying to understand your customer interactions, help you understand your customer interactions, and again, maximize every company interaction, not just those within your contact center realm with this particular solution, Conversation IQ. As such, it's able to provide quality management and speech analytic tools to allow all of your employees to be monitored and managed with their interactions with all the customers so that at the end of the day, you provide the best customer experience the first time, every time, with the assistance of Vertical Communications, Conversation IQ, and 8x8. Fantastic. Thank you, everybody, for joining today. It's a pleasure to have you on board. Look forward to having you for our next webinar. Have a nice day.